Gate agent laughs at black woman's suitcase, shocked when she arrives as VIP investor. Unspoken judgments can be the heaviest baggage on any journey. Soleil Johnson stepped into the bustling Delta Airlines terminal with her chin high, determined to make her flight. Her meticulously planned business trip was an important milestone, but an indifferent gate agent threatened to derail her confidence. As Soleil approached, suitcase in tow, a mocking laugh sliced through the busy concourse. The sting of prejudice set her heart pounding, yet she firmly refused to let it break her poise. Little did that callous gate agent know, Soleil was not just a passenger, she was an influential investor on a mission. Soleil Johnson was no stranger to airports, but every visit filled her with a fresh sense of anticipation and sometimes a little anxiety. The airport had become a symbol of ambition for her, a bridge between her current life and the possibilities that lay beyond. From her early days in a modest neighborhood in Atlanta to her ascension as a self-made entrepreneur, Soleil had always believed that travel was more than a journey from one place to another. It was a passage of self-discovery. That morning she arrived at Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport earlier than usual. Her flight was scheduled for Seattle, where she hoped to finalize an important deal that could expand her investment portfolio. The city, known for its booming tech culture, was ripe with opportunities. Soleil had spent weeks preparing for this trip, analyzing financial statements, drafting proposals, and practicing her pitch until she could recite it in her sleep. She navigated the bustling halls of the airport with her chic black carry-on suitcase, which she'd bought years ago at a discount store. Despite its modest origin, the suitcase had been her trusted companion on countless journeys. It rolled smoothly, with only a small scuff on one corner, hinting at its age. But Soleil valued utility and sentiment over flash. She preferred to let her impeccable professional attire and sharp mind handle impressions. Her first stop was the Delta Airlines check-in kiosk to retrieve her boarding pass. The kiosk was acting up, but a printout of her itinerary assured her there was a seat with her name on it. Next, she proceeded to the security checkpoint, trying to maintain her typical sense of calm. Even after traveling extensively, Soleil never grew completely comfortable with the lines, the scanners, and the occasional microaggressions she faced. As a tall, poised black woman, she had endured the quick stares, the second glances, and the dismissive attitudes more times than she cared to remember. Yet she refused to shrink herself or her dreams to fit narrow expectations. While waiting at the gate, Soleil buried herself in her smartphone, rechecking the details of her upcoming presentation. She felt a tiny thrill course through her as she imagined the boardroom in Seattle, the polished table, and the power suits worn by the executives. She envisioned herself deftly walking them through her strategic plan, revealing her deep understanding of market trends. She could almost hear them nod in approval. When the gate agent finally stepped up to the microphone to announce that pre-boarding would soon begin, Soleil gathered her belongings. The agent wore a pressed uniform, a bright red Delta scarf around her neck, and a tight bun that gave her an air of strict authority. She introduced herself as Clarissa and began reading through the flight details with a practiced monotone. Clarissa was almost done reciting flight specifics when she paused abruptly. Her eyes rested on Soleil's somewhat worn carry-on bag. Soleil felt the shift immediately. Clarissa's stern expression turned into a smirk as she watched Soleil approach. "Ma'am, are you sure that carry-on meets the size requirements?" Clarissa asked in a voice loud enough for nearby passengers to hear. There was a trace of condescension in her tone, one that Soleil had grown adept at detecting. Soleil forced a polite smile. "I've traveled with this bag many times. It's standard size, and it has fit in every overhead bin I've used. But if you want to check it, I can." Clarissa narrowed her eyes. "Please place it in the baggage sizer." A few onlookers turned their heads. The hush that spread around them felt heavier than it should have been for such a routine request. Soleil felt a twinge of unease, but she complied. As expected, the suitcase fit easily into the sizer. "There you have it," Soleil said gently. "We're good." Clarissa still looked unconvinced, but she couldn't argue with the evidence. "Fine. Next time, choose a bag that doesn't look so questionable," she murmured, unable to disguise the edge in her voice. Soleil tilted her head, unsure if she had heard correctly. She opened her mouth to ask Clarissa to repeat herself, but the gate agent had already turned her attention to another passenger. Soleil could feel the heat in her cheeks, a mix of embarrassment and anger. She had expected a straightforward check-in, not a mild humiliation in front of strangers. To dispel the tension, Soleil rolled her suitcase toward a corner of the waiting area and took a seat. She forced herself to focus on her phone again, trying to recapture the excitement she had felt just moments ago. She reminded herself that small-minded people existed in every corner of the world, and it was best not to let them derail her focus. But as the minutes passed, Soleil couldn't shake a lingering sense of unease. She knew prejudice ran deeper than a single encounter. Had Clarissa singled her out because of the color of her skin? Because Soleil's suitcase didn't scream luxury? She remembered the countless times she had been overlooked or underestimated in her line of work. The sting of microaggressions never dulled completely, no matter how professional or accomplished she became. She tried to distract herself by reviewing her notes about the tech firm in Seattle. The potential partnership involved providing startup capital for a sustainable energy project. Soleil was always on the lookout for progressive ventures that aligned with her belief in equitable social and environmental impact. She saw business as more than just a way to make money. It was a way to uplift communities and pave a better future for those who came after her. At that moment, the overhead speaker crackled, pre-boarding for passengers needing assistance, families with small children, and our first-class travelers is now open. Soleil waited until her zone was called. She had a main cabin seat, a cost-cutting measure she often used despite her financial success. Soleil believed in living within her means, carefully measuring where extra expenditures were truly warranted. When her group was finally called, Soleil queued up. As she advanced, she watched Clarissa half-heartedly greet each passenger. Occasionally, Clarissa would plaster on a fake smile for travelers who looked affluent, those wearing designer shoes, carrying high-end handbags, or sporting suits that screamed CEO. The minute Soleil stepped forward, Clarissa's expression flickered with that same mocking smirk from earlier. Soleil braced herself, hoping there would be no more confrontations. "Boarding pass?" Clarissa asked tersely. Soleil handed it over, her face neutral. She wasn't about to give Clarissa the satisfaction of a visible reaction. Clarissa scrutinized the pass, and then Soleil's ID, taking longer than usual. Then, in a hushed but pointed voice, she said, "You know, some people like you try to sneak on more baggage than allowed or pretend to be in a better boarding group. Just a heads up, we watch for that." Soleil's eyes flashed with shock. "Excuse me?" she said quietly, her voice controlled but firm. "I don't understand what you mean by people like me." Clarissa's smirk returned in full force. "Let's not make a scene. Have a pleasant flight." She handed back the pass and turned her gaze to the passenger behind Soleil. The words hung in the air, acidic and unmistakable. Soleil felt an urge to stand her ground, to demand Clarissa explain herself. But she was also painfully aware of how quickly these situations could escalate, how easily security could be called if Clarissa decided Soleil was a problem. Taking a deep breath, Soleil clutched her boarding pass and proceeded down the jet bridge, her grip on the handle of her carry-on tightening with every step. The flight was uneventful, but Soleil couldn't rest. Her mind was a whirlwind of conflicting emotions. On one hand, she wanted to focus on the important meeting in Seattle. On the other, she couldn't ignore the venom in Clarissa's behavior. She replayed the gate agent's words, "people like you," over and over, each repetition a painful reminder of how prejudice could mar even a routine task like boarding a flight. Yet Soleil reminded herself that she had risen above far greater adversities. Growing up in a neighborhood overshadowed by poverty and limited opportunities, she had fought tooth and nail to earn scholarships, to attend a top-tier university, and to build her business. She had learned that sometimes the best response to bigotry was excellence, and Soleil had every intention of being excellent. Her mind wandered back to her grandmother's wise words, "Let no one tell you you're less than. Let your success speak for you." It was a mantra Soleil had carried in her heart for years. She resolved that she wouldn't let Clarissa's actions define her day or overshadow her achievements. This trip wasn't about the gate agent's ignorance. It was about Soleil's vision for a future where more underrepresented entrepreneurs could break barriers as she had. When the plane landed in Seattle, Soleil disembarked feeling more resolute. She noticed the difference in the air immediately, the crisp breeze carrying the faint scent of pine, the bustling energy of a city known for innovation. Perhaps this new environment would bring clarity and success. After collecting her suitcase from the overhead bin, Soleil made her way through the terminal. She paused to admire a poster advertising a philanthropic forum sponsored by the Gates Foundation. Though her schedule was tight, she wondered if she might manage to drop by. New connections always sparked new ideas, and Soleil thrived on creative synergy. Outside, a car waited to take her to the downtown hotel where she would spend the next several days. She had arranged a block of meetings, including one with the executives of Windstar Innovations, the company leading a renewable energy project aimed at redefining solar technology. Soleil was as prepared as she could be, yet a small part of her worried about the same old prejudices creeping into boardrooms. Still, if she let fear stop her, she'd never have made it this far. In the car, she glanced down at her phone and saw an email from her assistant confirming that the meeting location had changed. Instead of the tech firm's office, the meeting would be held at a luxurious penthouse suite in a corporate high-rise. Soleil raised an eyebrow at the sudden switch. She wasn't entirely sure why the venue had changed, but she'd have to adapt on the fly. Arriving at the hotel, Soleil checked in and quickly freshened up. The plush surroundings were a far cry from her humble beginnings, but she never let herself forget where she came from. She prepared her materials one last time, ensuring her laptop was charged and her pitch deck in order. Later, in the penthouse suite, Soleil was greeted by the team from Windstar Innovations. She soon realized the change of venue was because they were also hosting representatives from another potential investor, someone apparently with deep pockets and considerable influence. A faint flicker of anxiety surfaced. Soleil prided herself on her professional approach, but she had no intention of being overshadowed by a competitor with more money. She knew the project was worth fighting for, and that her strategic insights and passion for social good were unique offerings. The meeting began with polite introductions. From the moment she started speaking, Soleil commanded the room's attention. She brought her unwavering confidence, her thorough research, and her genuine passion for sustainable development. Eyes lit up around the table. It was clear they appreciated her earnest approach. She fielded every question with poise and clarity, weaving her personal experiences and dedication to community uplift into a compelling narrative that left them nodding in approval. At the end of her presentation, the Windstar executives exchanged glances. One of them, a tall woman named Samantha Green, spoke up. "Soleil, I have to say, we're impressed. We've met a lot of potential investors, but your vision aligns with what Windstar stands for. We value not just financial backing, but a real partnership." We'll definitely be discussing how we can move forward together. Relief and excitement surged through Soleil. She managed a gracious smile, thanking them for the opportunity. She noticed the other interested investor, a middle-aged man in a sleek suit, leaning back with a nonchalant expression. He had asked a few curt questions, mostly about financial returns, but he seemed aloof. Soleil couldn't put her finger on it, but something about him felt off, as though he was sizing her up. Nevertheless, Soleil's main focus was the partnership. She could sense genuine enthusiasm from the Windstar team, which signaled good news for her mission. While she couldn't be certain how the final decision would go, she felt she had put her best foot forward. Back at her hotel room that evening, Soleil allowed herself a moment to bask in the day's success. The weight on her shoulders felt lighter. She ordered a simple room service meal, grilled chicken salad, and a sparkling water, and settled down to revise her business plans for the rest of the week. As she typed away, her phone buzzed with an incoming call from her assistant in Atlanta. "Soleil, you won't believe what happened," her assistant said, voice crackling with urgency. "I got a call from Delta's corporate. They want to schedule a meeting with you next week regarding a new minority investment initiative." Soleil nearly dropped her fork. "Delta Airlines wants to talk about an investment initiative? With me?" Her assistant laughed in delight. "Yes, you! They've been following your success and want to see if you'd be willing to collaborate on some venture designed to promote equity in travel and aviation. I just got the email after the call." They're pretty serious. Soleil's mind raced. She had long wondered why airlines didn't do more to invest in diverse communities and address the travel disparities that existed. Could this be an opportunity to create meaningful change on a large scale? She thought back to Clarissa's attitude at the gate. Perhaps there was a chance that Soleil could influence corporate policies that trickled down to people in roles like Clarissa's, hopefully reducing the bias that passengers of color often faced. "That's incredible," Soleil finally responded. "Let's accept the meeting. I'd love to hear what they have in mind. In the meantime, keep this under wraps until we know more details." "We don't want to jump the gun." Her assistant agreed and hung up, leaving Soleil to contemplate this new twist. She recalled the scornful look on Clarissa's face that morning. Did Clarissa have any idea who she was humiliating? And did the corporate office have a clue that one of their staff was treating customers with disdain? Soleil mused on the irony of the situation. If she accepted Delta's partnership, she could end up owning a stake in a major initiative within the very airline that employed people like Clarissa. The possibilities were both exciting and daunting. She felt a surge of resolve. If she went through with it, she'd ensure that employees at all levels understood the importance of respect and inclusivity. Tired but inspired, Soleil finally shut her laptop. Tomorrow would be another day of meetings, but her mind was already racing ahead to the potential partnership with Delta. All her life, people had assumed she was too young, too inexperienced, or just not the right fit. Yet she'd consistently proven them wrong, forging her own path with determination, compassion, and a willingness to take risks. Unbeknownst to her, fate had more twists in store. Clarissa's cruel remark at the gate was just the beginning of a series of events that would unravel the distance between a small-minded employee and a visionary investor. And when Soleil returned to Atlanta, the real drama and the real karma would begin. The day after Soleil's successful meeting with Windstar Innovations dawned bright and crisp in Seattle. She woke early, determined to make the most of her time on the West Coast. Though her primary objective, pitching her investment proposal, was well on track, Soleil believed in seizing every opportunity to expand her network and deepen her understanding of the industries she was involved in. Her first stop was a breakfast meetup organized by a local entrepreneurs forum. The gathering took place at a stylish co-working space in the heart of downtown. The open floor plan bustled with young professionals exchanging ideas over coffee and pastries. Soleil, ever the people person, introduced herself to a few key players in Seattle's startup scene. One of them was an energetic founder developing a unique platform to connect small businesses with sustainable supply chains. Another was an activist turned investor who used her capital to fund grassroots projects in underprivileged areas. Soleil felt right at home. Shortly after concluding a promising conversation about potential cross-collaboration, she received a text message from Samantha Green, the WinStar executive. "We'd like to speak with you again before you head back to Atlanta. Possible to meet for lunch today?" Soleil glanced at the time. She had initially planned a museum visit, hoping to unwind and appreciate some local art, but an opportunity to solidify her standing with WinStar took precedence. She quickly replied that she'd be delighted and rearranged her schedule. They agreed on a trendy rooftop restaurant with panoramic views of the city's skyline. As Soleil arrived, she spotted Samantha seated at a corner table, accompanied by two other WinStar team members, a finance director and a project manager. Samantha's warm grin set Soleil at ease. "Thanks for joining us," Samantha said, motioning for Soleil to sit. "We wanted to talk more informally about your vision. Yesterday was all about the numbers, but we also care about the mission and the people behind them." The conversation that followed was as refreshing as the rooftop breeze. They talked about Soleil's background in more depth, her upbringing in Atlanta, her motivation to create social impact through investment, and her unwavering desire to bring more diversity into corporate boardrooms. In turn, the WinStar team shared their own journeys and how the company started as a small, crowd-funded venture. Each had stories of overcoming obstacles and forging new paths. Their synergy was undeniable. "We're close to making a decision," Samantha said at the end of lunch. "But we want you to know we see this as more than just a cash infusion. We want a partner who believes in our technology and our ethos. We believe that could be you, Soleil." Excitement fluttered through Soleil's chest. She tried to maintain her composure, simply nodding and thanking them for their consideration. Though nothing was set in stone, she could almost see the partnership blossoming into a multi-faceted success story. After lunch, Soleil returned to her hotel room with a renewed sense of purpose. She had a few hours before her next event, a panel discussion on sustainable investing, so she allowed herself a moment to collect her thoughts. Thoughts of Clarissa's mocking words at the Atlanta gate still lingered, but they felt distant now, overshadowed by the possibility of forging a major partnership with WinStar and the tantalizing meeting offer from Delta's corporate. A phone call from her mother interrupted her reverie. "Soleil, baby, how's Seattle treating you?" her mother asked, in a gentle southern drawl that immediately made Soleil nostalgic for home. "It's wonderful, Mama," Soleil replied, her tone softening. "I've had some great meetings. I might be expanding my portfolio in a big way." Her mother's voice brimmed with pride. "You always were ambitious. Just don't forget to take care of yourself. These corporate folks will run you ragged if you let them. I promise I'm staying balanced," Soleil said, smiling into the phone. They spoke for a few more minutes, exchanging tidbits about family happenings. When the call ended, Soleil felt grounded, reminded of the support system that had nurtured her ambition and heart. That evening, Soleil, dressed in a sleek navy blazer, paired with matching pants for the Sustainable Investing panel. The venue was a modern conference center with glass walls that allowed the golden hues of the setting sun to illuminate the interior. After checking in at the registration desk, Soleil made her way to the designated hall. Several experts were already seated on a curved stage, each ready to share insights. The panel discussion proved invigorating. Topics ranged from green bonds to community development initiatives. from the intersection of technology and philanthropy to the urgent need for diversity among industry leaders. Soleil was invited on stage midway through the session to provide her perspective on how to attract more underrepresented investors to the renewable energy sector. She spoke with a clarity and passion that drew appreciative nods from the audience. After the event, as she mingled with other attendees, a voice called out her name. She turned to find a polished, middle-aged woman with a warm smile approaching. Soleil Johnson, right? I saw your presentation. I'm Janice Porter, Vice President at Viridian Investments. Soleil shook her hand. It's a pleasure, Miss Porter. I found your insights on community-focused strategies fascinating, Janice said. We've been considering launching a community solar fund, but we're missing certain links. I'd love to pick your brain if you have some time tomorrow. Soleil agreed, quickly scheduling a brief meeting before her flight back to Atlanta. Opportunities seemed to be stacking up like dominoes, each opening a new door. She felt both exhilarated and slightly overwhelmed. By the time she returned to her hotel, it was nearly midnight, and her thoughts were buzzing with endless possibilities. The next morning brought cloudy skies and a chill in the air, but Soleil's enthusiasm hadn't waned. She met briefly with Janice Porter over coffee, thoroughly impressed by Viridian Investments' forward-thinking approach. Another potential collaboration was set in motion, though Soleil knew she needed to remain strategic about her capacity. Taking on too many projects at once could be detrimental, no matter how noble or profitable they seemed. With her business in Seattle concluded, Soleil packed her trusty black carry-on, mentally bracing herself for the journey back to Atlanta. She was relieved to see no sign of Clarissa at the Seattle airport's Delta Gate, though it would have been quite the coincidence. This time, the boarding process went smoothly, and Soleil settled into her seat for the long flight home. By the time she touched down in Atlanta, night had already fallen. Soleil felt a familiar wave of comfort wash over her as she passed the illuminated airport signs. She had spent her life in this city. Its heartbeat was her heartbeat, its spirit inseparable from her own. Though travel always excited her, returning home was a different kind of joy. Yet Soleil had little time to rest. The very next morning, she was scheduled to meet with Delta's corporate team to discuss the new minority investment initiative. After a quick dinner and a few hours of sleep, she rose early, dressed in a form-fitting grey sheath dress and a crisp blazer, and headed out. Her assistant had arranged a car to drive her to Delta's headquarters, located near the airport. As they sped along the highway, Soleil mentally rehearsed potential points of discussion. Walking into the Delta campus felt surreal. The sleek corridors displayed photographs of historical milestones, vintage planes, uniforms from bygone eras, and images of groundbreaking achievements in aviation. Soleil's heels clicked against the polished floor as she followed a friendly staff member who had been assigned to escort her to the executive conference room. Along the way, Soleil noted the hustle of employees rushing between cubicles and meeting rooms, each contributing to the intricate machinery of a major airline. When she finally entered the conference room, she was greeted by a panel of executives seated around a glossy wooden table. The air was thick with anticipation and the faint scent of coffee. At the center was a poised woman with a badge reading Sonia Martinez, Senior VP of Corporate Development. "Miss Johnson, welcome," Sonia said, extending her hand. "We've been looking forward to meeting you." "Likewise," Soleil replied, returning the handshake. They settled in, exchanging polite greetings. Soleil recognized a few faces from press releases and LinkedIn profiles. She was handed an official document outlining Delta's proposed initiative, a plan to partner with minority-owned investment firms to develop programs supporting underrepresented travelers, entrepreneurs, and aspiring aviation professionals. Soleil skimmed the highlights, spotting terms like scholarship fund, supplier diversity expansion, and community outreach. Sonia began the discussion. We've been analyzing data around travel disparities for some time. We see a large percentage of travelers from minority backgrounds facing both economic and social barriers. Additionally, there's a glaring lack of representation in airline leadership and pilot rosters. Delta wants to address these gaps, but we also believe it can be a profitable, sustainable effort if we partner with the right investors. Soleil nodded, her heart racing with excitement. That aligns with my interests. I've spent my career focusing on how to leverage capital for social good. Can you walk me through what level of involvement you envision from an investor's perspective? A male executive jumped in, his name tag reading Robert Klein, Director of Strategic Partnerships. We're prepared to offer a tiered investment option with potential for equity in specific Delta initiatives. It's not just philanthropic. We want real returns for our investors, but we also want to ensure the funds are directed toward meaningful programs. The conversation shifted into a deep dive. Soleil asked pointed questions about timeline, metrics for success, and how decisions about fund allocation would be made. She advocated for transparency and local community engagement, ensuring any scholarship or community outreach program wouldn't just be a token gesture. The executives seemed receptive, especially Sonia, who frequently met Soleil's gaze with expressions of genuine admiration. By the end of the meeting, Soleil was both exhausted and invigorated. They had only scratched the surface of what could be a groundbreaking partnership. Sonia suggested they form a task force, Soleil's team and Delta's, to flesh out details over the next few months. I'm thrilled we're on the same page, Sonia concluded, offering Soleil a warm smile. There's a lot of work to do, but this could be transformative. Soleil agreed, shaking each executive's hand in turn. As she exited the conference room, she felt a rush of possibilities. If this initiative came to fruition, she could help create scholarships for aspiring Black pilots, develop mentorship programs for underrepresented youth, and even push for more inclusive hiring practices within the airline. While Soleil understood change wouldn't be instantaneous, being involved at the corporate level gave her a seat at the table, a chance to shape policies from the inside out. But Soleil was not prepared for what awaited her in the lobby. As she stepped off the elevator, she came face to face with Clarissa, the very gate agent who had humiliated her at the airport just days before. Clarissa, dressed in her Delta uniform, stood at the reception desk, apparently collecting paperwork. The moment Clarissa recognized Soleil, a cascade of emotions flitted across her features: shock, confusion, and maybe even dread. Soleil paused, her posture calm but her heart racing. She remembered the vile expression on Clarissa's face, the hateful remark about people like you. In that instant, Soleil felt the weight of her new role. She was on the cusp of forging a partnership that could reshape Delta's approach to diversity, and yet here she stood, confronted by a glaring example of the very prejudice she was determined to address. Clarissa managed a stiff greeting. "Hello, Miss Johnson," she said, glancing nervously at Soleil's expensive shoes and impeccable attire. She stammered for words. I didn't realize you're here for a meeting." Soleil leveled her gaze. "Yes, I just had a meeting with corporate. We're discussing an investment initiative." Clarissa's face paled. She clutched her paperwork, fingers trembling. For a moment, she appeared as though she might try to justify her previous behavior, but no words came out. Soleil said nothing more, stepping past Clarissa and heading toward the main doors. She refused to give Clarissa the satisfaction of a confrontation in the middle of Delta's corporate lobby. Instead, Soleil wore her composure like armor, knowing that true power often lay in restraint. Yet the encounter rattled Soleil. It was one thing to face rude gate agents in passing, but another to realize she might be working with an organization that employed people who casually displayed prejudice. She knew she couldn't single-handedly root out discrimination within a massive corporation, but she could at least influence the policies that set the tone for employee behavior. Shaken but resolved, Soleil climbed into the waiting car outside. As it pulled away from the building, her thoughts returned to the initial sting of Clarissa's mocking laugh and the dismissive way she had eyed Soleil's carry-on. That memory now stood in stark contrast to Soleil's negotiations with top executives. The two worlds, employee prejudice and corporate ideals, coexisted within the same institution. Soleil vowed that if she moved forward with this partnership, she wouldn't shy away from addressing such disparities head-on. Over the following weeks, Soleil dove into the whirlwind of tasks that came with her growing empire. She continued negotiations with WinStar Innovations, finalizing the legal framework for her investment. She followed up with Janice Porter on the Community Solar Fund concept. And, of course, she kept in frequent contact with Sonia Martinez and the Delta team. They exchanged emails daily, each focusing on a different facet of the Minority Investment Initiative: scholarship structures, pilot training programs, marketing strategies, and community outreach events. Gradually, a vision began to take shape, one that involved Soleil not just funding, but co-leading a series of projects designed to boost Delta's engagement with underrepresented groups. Soleil pushed for accountability measures, insisting that success be measured not merely by press coverage or short-term financial gains, but by tangible outcomes like more black pilot hires, higher graduation rates from scholarship recipients, and improved customer satisfaction among minority travelers. Sonia was open to all of it, and the synergy between them felt like a powerful force for good. All the while, Soleil couldn't stop thinking about Clarissa. She asked herself if she was being petty by letting one ignorant employee loom so large in her thoughts. Yet Soleil knew from personal experience that microaggressions, however small, were symptomatic of broader cultural issues. If a gate agent felt comfortable openly demeaning passengers, what did that say about the airline's internal culture? Finally, Soleil decided to talk to Sonia about it. During a conference call discussing the rollout of an upcoming event, Soleil carefully broached the topic. "Sonia, there's a matter I'd like to address, if this is an appropriate time." "Of course," Sonia responded. "What's on your mind?" Soleil took a slow breath. "During one of my flights with Delta, I had a troubling encounter with a gate agent. She exhibited behavior that felt discriminatory, mocking my carry-on and making comments that implied stereotypes about black passengers." A heavy silence weighed on the line. Soleil's heart pounded. She hoped she hadn't jeopardized the nascent partnership by bringing up internal issues. Then Sonia spoke, her voice steady but clearly concerned. "I'm sorry you experienced that. I would never want any Delta passenger, especially someone we're looking to partner with, to feel disrespected." "Did you report this through our customer service channels?" "No," Soleil replied. "At the time, I chose not to escalate, but I ran into the same agent at your headquarters. It struck me as more than a one-off incident." Sonia's tone softened. "I appreciate your honesty. We do have protocols for addressing such behavior. If you're comfortable, I can facilitate a formal review. This kind of conduct goes against our brand values." Soleil felt a mixture of relief and hesitation. She had never intended to get the gate agent fired, yet she also believed strongly in accountability. "I understand that might be necessary," she said after a pause, "but I also hope we can use this as an opportunity to address a deeper issue. Maybe this initiative we're building could include training programs or performance benchmarks related to inclusivity." "I hear you, Soleil," Sonia replied, a note of admiration in her voice. "We'll open an investigation, and I'll also bring this suggestion to our HR and diversity teams. We want to be better." That's why we reached out to you in the first place." After the call ended, Soleil felt an unexpected wave of emotion. She had grown accustomed to fighting her own battles, rarely expecting institutional support. Now she was on the brink of influencing the airline from the inside. If the initiative succeeded, it could become a model for other corporations, a testament that empathy, inclusivity, and profit need not be at odds. Meanwhile, Clarissa, unaware of the intensifying investigation, continued her daily tasks at Delta. She noticed a shift in the way her supervisors interacted with her, more watchful, asking pointed questions about her treatment of passengers. Clarissa didn't realize that Soleil's conversation with Sonia had sparked an internal review. She only felt the pressure mounting and couldn't understand why. As the weeks turned into months, Soleil's collaboration with Delta gained momentum. Press releases hinted at a transformative partnership, generating industry buzz. Soleil, Sonia, and their teams orchestrated a public unveiling event at a prestigious hotel in downtown Atlanta. The event would showcase the initiative's aim, providing scholarships, training, and inclusive hiring practices. Soleil was set to deliver a keynote speech. On the day of the event, Soleil stood backstage, adjusting the microphone clipped to her lapel. She wore a tailored red dress, a subtle nod to Delta's branding. Her heart pounded, but it wasn't from nervousness alone. She felt the gravity of the moment. This partnership was more than a business move. It was a statement about progress and unity. Sonia introduced Soleil to the audience of airline executives, local politicians, media representatives, and community leaders. Applause greeted Soleil as she stepped onto the stage. She began by sharing her personal journey, how she had once been a little girl in Atlanta, gazing at planes overhead and dreaming of the world beyond her neighborhood. She spoke of the barriers she faced, the mentors who believed in her, and her determination to create pathways for others. "When we talk about investing in communities," Soleil said, her voice steady, "we're not just talking about money. We're talking about investing in people's potential, in the belief that every individual, regardless of background, deserves the chance to fly, literally and metaphorically." That's what this partnership with Delta is about. It's not a quick fix. It's a commitment to a long journey of growth, accountability, and change. The crowd erupted in applause, some even rising to their feet. Soleil felt tears prick at the corners of her eyes. She'd never expected to stand on a stage alongside the senior leadership of a major airline, championing an initiative that could change countless lives. But fate had one more twist to deliver. As Soleil stepped off the stage, a series of presentations followed, each highlighting the partnership's benefits. Then, Delta's chief operating officer announced they would be recognizing employees who had consistently demonstrated exemplary customer service. Soleil watched as employees were called to the stage to receive plaques and commendations. It was a feel-good moment meant to underscore Delta's commitment to excellence. Halfway through the ceremony, a name was announced that sent a chill down Soleil's spine: Clarissa Mitchell. Soleil watched, astonished, as the same gate agent who had demeaned her climbed onto the stage to accept an award. Clarissa looked polished, her uniform immaculate. She wore a smile that seemed genuine, and the audience applauded politely. From the sidelines, Soleil felt her stomach churn. How could this woman be receiving a customer service award when Soleil had lodged a complaint about her discriminatory behavior? Soleil looked to Sonia, who appeared equally stunned. Sonia quickly conferred with another executive, confusion evident on their faces. In that moment, Soleil realized how complicated institutional change could be. Different departments, incomplete communication, and bureaucratic processes could result in glaring inconsistencies. Perhaps Clarissa's review was still underway, or maybe higher-ups hadn't connected the dots. Whatever the explanation, the optics were terrible. Soleil felt her heart sink as the audience clapped for a woman who had once spat prejudice at her. Clarissa waved her plaque for the cameras, her eyes scanning the crowd. When her gaze fell on Soleil, her expression went blank for just an instant, then shifted to something akin to panic. She fumbled her smile, turning away quickly. The awkwardness rippled through the room, though only a handful of attendees seemed to pick up on it. Soleil maintained her composure, her face betraying none of the inner turmoil she felt. The event concluded with a grand photo session. Soleil and Sonia posed with local dignitaries, each snapshot capturing what was meant to be a triumphant moment. Yet Soleil's thoughts kept returning to Clarissa. She couldn't help but wonder whether the Gate Agents Award would undermine the seriousness of Soleil's complaint, or if it might even sow doubts about Soleil's credibility. The last thing Soleil wanted was to be seen as a troublemaker, especially at the dawn of a partnership she had poured her heart into. That evening, Soleil found an email waiting in her inbox from Sonia. It read, "Soleil, I'm so sorry about what happened today. The recognition program is managed by a separate department, and they were unaware of the pending complaint. We're escalating the situation and will keep you updated. Please trust that we are taking this seriously." Soleil took a steadying breath. She was relieved that Sonia was on her side, but the incident highlighted just how deeply rooted and tangled systemic issues could be. Soleil wondered what it would take for true change to permeate every corner of a vast corporation like Delta. Despite these concerns, Soleil refused to abandon the partnership. She saw it as an opportunity, perhaps even a responsibility, to advocate for real reform, no matter how slow or frustrating the process might be. In the coming weeks, Soleil balanced her time between steering the Delta initiative, finalizing her deal with Windstar, and exploring other ventures. Whenever she felt discouraged, she reminded herself of the young people who would receive scholarships, the potential staff who might be treated more fairly thanks to better training, and the broader impact of normalizing inclusion in the airline industry. Behind the scenes, Delta's internal review of Clarissa's behavior pressed on. Supervisors interviewed co-workers, reviewed security footage, and gathered statements from passengers who had interacted with Clarissa. Slowly, an unflattering picture emerged of an employee who displayed a pattern of disrespect toward customers she deemed unimportant. The awarding department hadn't seen these findings in time, resulting in the ill-timed recognition. As Soleil continued to push for deeper institutional reforms, she had no idea that Clarissa's reckoning and Soleil's triumphant vindication were imminent. In a matter of days, a sequence of events would converge, revealing not only Clarissa's transgressions, but also the unbreakable resolve of a woman whose dreams soared higher than any airplane could reach. The final confrontation arrived with little fanfare but tremendous consequences. On a sunny afternoon, Soleil found herself back at Delta's corporate headquarters for a progress meeting. Just before the scheduled session, Sonia asked her to step into a private office. Sitting there was a human resources representative, her expression solemn. "We wanted you to know," the representative said, "that our investigation into the gate agent you reported has concluded. Multiple witnesses have corroborated instances of disrespectful and biased remarks. Based on these findings, Delta has decided to terminate her employment, effective immediately." Soleil's chest tightened. Though she had anticipated some disciplinary action, the finality of termination gave her pause. She remembered her grandmother's words about treating people with dignity, even when they don't do the same. But Soleil also recognized that tolerance of bigotry was not an option for any organization aiming to create genuine change. Sonia touched Soleil's shoulder gently. I know this is tough, but we can't look away when someone's actions contradict everything we're working for. I hope you understand. Soleil nodded, voice subdued. I do. Thank you for taking this seriously. News of the termination spread quickly among the staff. By the time Soleil reached the conference room, the atmosphere crackled with a mix of tension and relief. People were aware of the gate agent's unprofessional behavior, though few knew Soleil was directly involved. What they did understand was that Delta's leadership had signaled a firm stance. Disrespect toward passengers, particularly discriminatory behavior, would not be tolerated. As Soleil delivered her updates on the partnership's progress, she felt a new kind of respect in the room. This was not merely the deference given to someone with investment capital, but the genuine admiration for a person who used her influence to push for higher standards of conduct. Every face she glanced at, from Sonia's supportive gaze to the earnest expressions of junior associates, radiated a shared commitment to improvement. Soon after, Soleil found herself standing in front of a floor-to-ceiling window overlooking the runway. Planes taxied across the tarmac like colossal birds preparing for flight. She contemplated the sweeping changes that had led to this moment, her confrontation with Clarissa, the birth of the Minority Investment Initiative, and the sense that a corporate giant was finally starting to shift its focus toward accountability and inclusivity. Lost in thought, Soleil almost didn't notice when Sonia approached. "We're planning a special announcement," Sonia began, her eyes shining with pride. "In a few weeks, we'll be unveiling the first set of scholarships in partnership with local HBCUs, historically black colleges and universities. We'd love for you to attend as our guest of honor. Without you, none of this would be happening." Soleil felt a swell of emotion. "I'll be there," she said softly, "and I promise this is just the beginning." Before leaving, Soleil took one last look around the Delta campus. Despite the bureaucracy, the occasional missteps, and the painful reminder that prejudice still lingered, she believed progress was possible. Indeed, she felt it stirring in every conversation, every blueprint for the scholarship program, and every handshake sealing new promises. In the weeks that followed, Soleil noticed a renewed vigor in her own endeavors. The successful finalization of her Winstar deal and ongoing dialogues with Viridian Investments only fueled her ambition. Yet it was her collaboration with Delta that resonated most deeply, because it had become more than a business arrangement, it was a moral calling. She could see the change in real time, job openings that specified inclusivity standards, mentorship programs announced for young aviation enthusiasts, and a surge of employee-led initiatives to improve customer service protocols. Meanwhile, Clarissa's departure caused a brief stir, then faded from daily conversation. Soleil sometimes wondered about the former gate agent, whether she felt remorse, anger, or regret. Regardless, Soleil knew the choice to harass passengers had consequences. In a sense, Clarissa became the catalyst for Delta's stronger commitment to fairness. It was harsh karma indeed. Her downfall paved the way for an entire culture shift, one that Soleil hoped would prevent others from experiencing similar discrimination. On the day of the scholarship unveiling, Soleil once again found herself at a Delta-sponsored event, this time in a university auditorium draped with banners reading "Launch Your Dreams." Cameras flashed as local media documented the airline's new partnership with the HBCUs. Soleil gave a heartfelt speech about the power of education, sharing bits of her own journey and the burning desire she'd always had to uplift others. As she concluded, the audience erupted in thunderous applause. Soleil stood at the podium, absorbing the powerful moment. She saw Sonia in the front row, beaming with pride, and recognized a scattering of Delta employees, some who had been skeptical at first, now fully on board. The very energy in the room felt charged with hope, the sense that they were collectively writing a new chapter. Afterward, Soleil was swarmed by young students eager to learn more about the scholarship program. She stayed for hours, answering questions, dispensing advice, and offering words of encouragement. Her throat grew dry and her feet ached, but she pressed on, determined to let each student know their aspirations mattered. When the crowd finally thinned, Soleil took a moment to herself. She thought of everything that had led her here, the triumphs, the setbacks, and yes, even the humiliation at the airport gate. That one spark of cruelty had ignited a bonfire of reform. Soleil wouldn't have wished that confrontation on anyone, but she also couldn't deny that it pushed her to claim her authority. For that, she was strangely grateful. Outside, dusk had fallen, painting the sky in shades of deep purple and orange. Soleil stepped onto the campus lawn, the cool air brushing against her cheeks. Somewhere, a plane soared overhead, its engines humming a distant lullaby. She closed her eyes, recalling her grandmother's words once more. Let no one tell you you're less than. Let your success speak for you. Now, Soleil's success was speaking louder than ever, echoing across boardrooms, shining through scholarship funds, and resonating in the hearts of those who dared to reach for the skies. In her journey from a scorned passenger to a revered VIP investor, Soleil had proven one undeniable truth. Sometimes, the greatest victories are forged in the face of adversity, and the strongest wings take flight after emerging from a storm. Stories like Soleil's remind us that adversity can be the spark that ignites a movement. In her journey, a humiliating airport encounter transformed into a catalyst for corporate change, proving that one determined individual can influence a system much larger than themselves. Every step she took, whether forging new partnerships, advocating for scholarships, or standing firm against discrimination, was a stride toward a more inclusive future. If this story inspired you, take a moment to share it with someone who might need the encouragement. Spread the message that challenges can become opportunities for growth. If you believe in fostering understanding and equality, show your support, click the like button, subscribe for more powerful stories, and share this video across your networks. Your engagement not only helps the channel, but it also amplifies the call for change and unity. Together, let's continue to champion respect, kindness, and the power of unyielding determination today.